All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a company that's, well, you've probably never heard of them, but they are quietly rewriting the very rules of the financial world, and they're already handling billions, yes, billions of dollars every single day. So check out this number, 0.3%. Now, you might look at that and think, meh, that's nothing. But we're talking about the entire US stock market here. In that world, 0.3% isn't just big, it's absolutely massive. And this is all happening on one brand new exchange just a couple years after it even launched.
Yeah? That tiny little percentage? It translates into billions of dollars in trades. We're talking every single day. That's a mind-boggling amount of money flowing through a system that basically didn't exist a few years ago.
And it's all coming from a stock exchange you've likely never heard of. So the big question is, right? How on earth did a company called One Kronos just appear out of nowhere and start handling this kind of volume? I mean, they're up against giants like the NYSE and NASDAQ. The answer, it turns out, is a totally radical new idea.
But this incredible idea didn't just pop up overnight. Not at all. This was more like an obsession, something that two friends worked on for over a decade.
Just look at this timeline. The first glimmer of an idea was way back in 2011. They didn't even go all in until 2016. And then, get this, another 6 years passed before the exchange even launched and made a single commercial trade. I mean, in the startup world, that's an absolute eternity. It's exactly like the founders say, right? It's the classic overnight success, 10 years in the making. So much of the hard work happened completely behind the scenes. And it all came from this. Well, this perfect partnership. You had two sides of the same coin. On one hand, you have Kelly Littlepage. She's the academic, the one who studied under a pioneer in auction theory. She knew the solution in theory. And on the other hand, you had Stephen Johnson. He was the practitioner. He'd lived the problem firsthand at a hedge fund, seeing just how clunky and inefficient the markets really were.
So after they decided to go for it full-time in 2016, they entered what they themselves call the wilderness. We're talking 6 long years of grinding away, facing these massive obstacles that honestly would have made almost anyone else just give up.
And these weren't small hurdles. They were facing this trinity of giant obstacles. First, the tech itself was incredibly hard. They had to solve not one, but 2 really fundamental technology problems. Then you've got the regulators. You have to somehow explain this brand new way of doing things and get them to sign off on it. And finally, maybe the hardest part of all, the called start problem. How do you convince the first buyer and seller to show up to an empty marketplace? It's a classic chicken and egg nightmare. All the experts they talked to pretty much said the same thing. They'd say, wow, this is the coolest idea I've heard in capital markets, but you'll never print a trade. They were told, again and again, that the idea was brilliant, sure, but the real-world hurdles were just impossible to overcome. They were told it would never, ever work. So what was this revolutionary idea? What was so powerful that it was worth a whole decade of struggle? Well, it all comes down to rewriting one of the most fundamental rules of trading. Okay, to really get this, we first have to understand the old way, how things have worked for ages. It's called price-time priority. It's simple. The best price wins. If there's a tie, whoever got there first wins. That's it. One Kronos basically looked at that rule and said, nope, there's a better way. Instead of just finding the one best trade, their system looks at all the possible trades at once and figures out the best combination for the entire market. It's about finding the best overall outcome, not just the best single deal.
And what this new method solves is something auction theorists call the exposure problem. Just imagine, you're a big trader and you have a complex strategy with, say, 3 different parts. Your biggest fear is that you'll only get parts 1 and 2 done, but not part 3. Now you're stuck with this incomplete, risky position. That fear makes everyone more timid, more cautious, and it makes the whole market less efficient.
So here's a perfect example of how it works in the real world. Let's say you want to buy Tesla stock, but at the exact same time you want to short sell GM and Ford. The old way, you'd have to place 3 separate trades and just cross your fingers that they all go through. But with One Kronos, you can bundle that whole strategy into a single package, a single atomic order. The exchange then executes the entire 3-part trade all at once as one indivisible unit, or not at all. It's all or nothing. The exposure risk, gone.
Okay, but here's where the story gets even bigger. Because the stock market, that's just the beginning. The founders see this technology as a fundamental new building block, something they call a market primitive, that can make almost any complex market work better.
And they're not thinking small. They believe this model could be applied anywhere you have complex relationships, things that can be substitutes or complements for each other. We're talking foreign currencies, commodities, even something as complex as our electricity grids. But maybe the most fascinating application, the one that could change everything, is for compute power.
Yeah, as the founders put it, compute is the new oil. And when you think about it, they're right. It's the essential commodity that's powering our entire modern economy, especially this AI revolution we're in. And yet, the way we actually buy and sell it, it's incredibly primitive. Right now, the market for GPUs, the chips that power AI, is just a total mess. It's completely fragmented. You have these massive tech companies desperately scrambling to find the right GPUs in the right number for the right amount of time. It's this huge, inefficient headache, and the craziest part is that tons of valuable GPU capacity is just sitting there, idle.
This is exactly the kind of problem One Kronos' technology is built to solve. So what if you could create a real exchange for compute? What if a company could just say, hey, I need 10,000 of these specific GPUs for the next 3 weeks, all networked together in this particular way, and an exchange could just find the most efficient way to make that happen. Think of all the idle capacity that would unlock for science, for medical research, for innovation.
And that really leaves us with one last big thought. One Kronos proved that even the US stock market, one of the most complex and supposedly efficient markets on the planet, could be fundamentally improved. So it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other huge, inefficient markets out there are just waiting for a better idea to come along and completely rewrite the rules?